Hey there, welcome to Board Game Hot Takes. My name's Tim.
And this is Chris.
This is Adam.
And today we're going to be starting our top 40 games of all time list. This is always our most popular series of episodes. We'll be doing numbers 31 through 40 today. And then over the next 3 weeks, we'll continue that series down until we get to our top 10. So something to look forward to. But actually, we did a top 50 this year. Our top 41 to 50 was already recorded in a video, and it's going to be up on Patreon for our Patreon supporters by the time this episode drops. So if you really want to check out what the next 10 would be above these, after these, you can follow us there. It's patreon.com/boardgamehottakes. So we love your support there, but we're also giving you guys some stuff, put some effort into getting you something extra if you support us as well. So hope you enjoy that. Otherwise, we're going to get right into our list today, except since it's our kickoff of the series on the podcast, we're going to talk a little bit about how we made these lists, and then we'll jump into them. So how do you guys go about putting these lists on your menu?
I made my list the same way that I have every year, and that's on PubMeeple, which for those of you who are not familiar, it's a website where you can go in, you enter in all of your games that you played. It'll pull your list right off of BGG, and then it just does head-to-head matchups. Do you want to play this game or do you want to play that game? And at the end of like 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 clicks at the end of that, then you end up with a result, which is the list of your top however many games you got. Now, before talking more about how I calculated my list, I just want to say, like I think I say every year, that I object to calling this the top games list, because what it really is not the top games. It's the games that are top of my mind right now. And I think you guys do more or less the same thing. It's the games that I'm excited about, the games I'm interested in. And so, that is reflected in the list, that there's a lot of games in there that are great games, but they may not be as high on the list because I'm not excited about them at this exact moment. So really it's a snapshot in time. So beyond that, just doing the PubMeeple thing, the only big rule that I imposed upon myself was that I said, I'm not going to put anything in there that is a super light game, super short, super light. It's got to be something that could either by itself or sort of in conjunction with maybe another game be the main event of a game night. So just for example, I think this even came up last time you guys kind of called me out for this. I didn't have Star Realms on my list. And I said, well, Star Realms is probably like my favorite game of all time. Yeah, I've played over 10, 11, 12,000 games of Star Realms, but it's not the kind of thing that would be the centerpiece of a game night. If somebody said, hey, come on over and let's play blank, it probably wouldn't be Star Realms. So it doesn't make the list. Other than that, pretty much anything goes for the list. If it's a game I like, if it's a game I want to play, it can be on the list.
Well, a couple of things, Chris. That's an interesting caveat, a game that has to be a feature game at game night. And you can hear my daughters, they're like screaming in agony because that makes no sense at all. Why not just have your favorite games? So sorry about the noise coming from up there, having fun down there. But that's a caveat I did not do, Chris. Yeah. I picked just any, it could be a little tiny 10-minute game. It could be a big old grandiose afternoon game. So I'm curious how that's going to shake things up on your list. I largely did the same thing that you did, Chris. I went to PubMeeple, imported my games over, selected the ones that were actually, going to be in competitive for the top 50, 60, 70 games. I think I ended up with about 80 games on my list. And then I click through and what I used was, which game do I want to play right now? So which games am I hungriest for right now? Maybe it's because I've only played them once or twice, and I have that urge. I want to go back and explore them. It could just be that exploring element that made me click it above the other game, or it could be an old favorite. I don't know which one did I want to play right now at that moment. That's how I made my list. And I think you did something similar, Tim. How'd yours go?
I did. The difference between what I did and what you did, Adam, is that I actually did it like in advance of the episode. Well, Adam finished it 30 minutes after we were supposed to start recording tonight. But
sorry, I have a busy life, Tim.
No, that's So PubMeeple is great as a ranking engine. It lets you import your collection from Board Game Geek. But and so when it says collection, it means like basically you can set it to anything you've ranked, anything you own, anything that you've sold, whatever. I use some specific criteria here. In the first attempt I did, I said everything that's rated an 8.0 over 8 on Board Game Geek. So between 8 and 10, And I'm pretty liberal with my ratings. I tend, if I like a game, I rate it pretty high. If you read what the actual Board Game Geek rankings say, what the title of them is, most of them, if you like the game and you're going to want to go back to it frequently, it's going to be an 8 or more. So I'm pretty liberal with it. And that when I first did that, I started going through the list. It was going to be like 567 matchups. And I was starting to do these matchups that I was like, I'm not, that game's never going to make my top 50. I got to get a little bit stricter here and streamline it. So the first thing I did is I changed it to any games that I rated that were between 8 and 10. And then I removed any duplicates like Agricola and Agricola second edition, or like Seven Wonders and Seven Wonders, second edition. There's 4 Clank games that are all in my rankings, but I didn't need to compare every Clank against every other game I've got. So I only picked 1 Clank to pick in that series. So I did that kind of streamlining. And then I removed games that I had rated an 8 or more, but I knew I wouldn't make the list. Games like Carnegie, PAX Premier Second Edition, and Pipeline, which, like Carnegie, I probably will drop the rating on that. That doesn't deserve an 8 in my opinion. But PAX Premier Second Edition and Pipeline are really strong games. They probably shouldn't be rated an 8 by me anymore after playing them several times either, because I don't have that much fun playing them. But that's the key, is even though they're great games, they probably could have been an 8, but I'm not having fun playing them anymore. So they're off the list. I ended up with 124 games there. And then I kind of looked at anything that I rated an 8 or more, but only played once, and then took those off the list with a few exceptions. And those exceptions being games that I loved so much that I've made an attempt to purchase them, even if I haven't gotten a second play. And so this year is the first time I put a couple games on my list that only got 1 play ever yet, but I think I'm going to love for a long time to come. So I've bought it, and that ended up in 99 games. So that's how many I was actually ranking on this list. It still ends up with like 200 matchups when you do that. And I would occasionally, while I was going through this ranking, you can kind of trash one of the games that's on there. So if I kept finding a game that would continue to lose against another game, I'm like, yeah, that's not going to make it. Then I would remove it from the list and just shorten it down a little bit. So that's how I went about. This is really hard though, right? Because I didn't pick like Chris did, eliminating lightweight games. So sometimes I'm comparing a game like Sea Salt and Paper against Anachrony, right? Like you got these heavy games to like it. How do you actually compare those two games? Because they don't give you the same experience. And then there's like a party game that I love against like a midweight Euro. And then there's like solo only games compared to any multiplayer game. These are really hard rankings. So this is definitely not a definitive list for me. I just did my best of picking what I think is a great game out of the two. Which one do I really feel like I love the most of the two as I'm going through and picking them?
So Tim, I was going to defend my decision to pull out those light games, but you did it for me. I don't actually have to, because you're right. I mean, how can you do that list? Because if you said, hey, Chris, come on over, let's play a game, and then I get to pick the game. Do you want to play a game of Star Realms, or do you want to play a game of Barrage? Not that you would ever ask me if I wanted to play a game of Barrage, but I mean,
Star Realms.
It just doesn't, right? It just doesn't work that way. So that's why you have to pull those out. You just have to. So that was thing number one. Thing number two, did you actually say you gave Carnegie an 8?
Well, after the first play, I really thought I dug that game. I remember thinking like it could go down, and it definitely did fast for me. Like,
okay.
It's probably a 6 for me right now because I don't actually like playing that game. But it was, I definitely learned from going through this that I need to go back and revisit my ratings on some games and change them at this point.
Okay. Because I was going to say, I know you don't even like that game. It's like, how does that have an 8? You are really liberal with your rankings.
You're right. There, man.
Yeah. Okay.
Everything gets an 8.
All right.
Well, so let's just jump right into our top 31 through 40. And then next week, we'll get to the next 10 on the list.
All right. So let's start it off with a bang. This is one that's going to put a smile on Adam's face. It is Battle for Rokugan. Yeah. Just kidding. It's at Battle for Rokugan, designed by Molly Glover and Tom Jolly and published by Fantasy Flight Games. I said this one's going to put a smile on Adam's face because this is one that he introduced to us at our last Portland Con. And I think universally everybody fell in love with this game. Talk about just this light, breezy combat game with some, decent strategy in it, lots of player interaction, the really fun opportunities to make you feel like you're clever by playing the right token, because you put these tokens face down and you reveal what kind of unit you deployed, and then different units do different things. So maybe you have a unit that took out. It's just, there's all kinds of fun little strategy happening in there. in a game, a good area control game that plays quickly. It's a light rule set and is just oodles of fun. Battle for Rokugan is a great way to start off this list, and I'm dying to play this one again. We've only played one game of it. I've only played one game of it, and I really want to play this one again.
I am in the same boat, Chris. What a fantastic pick to get things started off. So yeah, like you said, it's like kind of a territory control, but there's also these region control. If you control a specific region, then you get this little bonus card. And you guys got all the bonus cards last game. I was so bad, I didn't get any bonus cards the entire game, I don't think. So I don't know. I was trying to like look over your guys' shoulder. What are those things? Those things are cool. And then all of a sudden you drop a bomb and wipe out half my other guys that were still on the map. So rough play for me, but I had so much fun. I want to go back to this one too. Everything you said about it. Battle for Rokugan. What a great game.
Yeah, such a fun game. I think I want to say that Adam first talked about this game back on our Cascadia episode, and it was like an on the table segment where he's like, I've had this game on my shelf and I finally opened it and can't wait to play it with you guys. And it just like, I can't trust Adam. He buys the weirdest, quirkiest games, anything he can find on Kickstarter with the most generic names. And so I just wasn't that excited about it. He brought it to Portland, and he brought it to Sedona. We didn't end up playing it. So we finally got it played in Portland. And this was obviously, if you've listened to those episodes, we all loved it. So glad that this was a rare hit from Adam.
Oh my gosh.
Dang, dude. That was cool.
Starting off pretty chilly. All right. My number 40 game is Brass Birmingham. This is the number 1 game. I believe it's still number 1. Yeah, it is. On Board Game Geek. This is by Martin Wallace and came out in 2018, which is right when I was coming in to the hobby. So it was kind of the coolest, sleekest thing at the time. I think another group that does a podcast, Shut Up and Sit Down, did a review on this one. They said it was great. So I think I had checked it out before them, though. I had it before them, so it was cool. And really enjoyed the mechanisms here. You're making these routes with either boats. Oh, yeah, see, Ada loves it too. With either boats in the first era or trains in the second era. You're connecting these cities, buying some beer. It's so satisfying when you can sell this mercantile tile or whatever it is, and you get to use somebody's beer. Oh, you get to use your own beer. Now you're flipping this tile and you're flipping your beer tile, and you're going up this much income over on the income tracker, and you got 10 points that you just got for yourself. So I don't know why, something about flipping those little chits and collecting that score right away, that's a nice little hit. Unlocking your player board with the different little chits that go out there, and then working that market. You got the steel market over here, and then the iron market or the coal market over there. So you can build a coal factory, and then you're getting all this money for the immediate coal you're selling. Or same thing with a steel or iron factory. You pop it up there. All these cubes go back to the market, fill it in, make the price of steel cheaper because they're buying it off of you. So that's a cool little economy that you can sort of take advantage of. And you have these weird clay pots thing. You get to learn all these crazy names of cities in the UK, and I still don't know how to say any of them. Great game, Brass Birmingham.
I got a chance to play this just a couple months ago, a 3-player game of it, and it's still a really strong design, really smart design. There's a game that's going to show up much, much higher on my list that I think just replaces it for me. So I don't really have any interest in playing Brass Birmingham anymore, but I would if somebody had it at the table and they wanted to.
I bet I know what that game is, Tim, but
too, yeah.
I won't ruin the surprise.
Don't spoil it for everybody else that already knows what that game is too.
Yeah, Brass Birmingham is one that I feel like I need to play it again. I liked it the first time, didn't like it so much the second time. It just didn't hit for me in that last play, but I feel like everybody else loves it. I must be missing something.
All right, well, my number 40 is Rajas of the Ganges, designed by Inca and Marcus Brand. This is a great, interesting dice. It's a worker placement game where dice is the resource that you collect, which is what makes it unique. So many spaces you'll go to, you're going there to pick up dice, but the dice and when you pick them up, you roll them, and what the pip value is kind of the strength of that resource. And there's just a lot of interesting things going on in this game. There's several different kind of mini areas of the board that you're working with. This is the game that introduced the crossing score paths that Arc Nova is so well known for right now. And I think it works great there, except one of the tracks on that path is your glory, which is the higher point value thing. But then there's the smaller point value thing, which is your money. But you spend your money too. So one of the types of points that you're trying to move up that track, you end up having to spend to buy things at certain points in the game. But there's also this little kind of tile placement puzzle. You've got a little mini board where you're trying to build out the area around your palace, and you can connect routes to get bonuses. All kinds of bonuses going on in this game. I don't own it because I don't need another worker placement game in my collection, but I love it. And it would probably be higher if I got to play it more, because every single time I play it, I really enjoy this game. It's a lot of fun things going on. Raj is the Ganjis.
Still haven't played this one.
We'll have to correct. You know what? We're going to correct that. This is a BGG Con one for sure.
All right.
Maybe I'll.
I'm stuck on a BGG Con
I'll play another game with or a different table, and you guys are playing that one. No, this game's all right. It's pretty, I don't know the word, gaudy. There's so much going on the board. I couldn't decipher it right away. It was distracting. All these, I say that. I probably have just many distracting games. I felt like there was a lot going on. I couldn't focus it in. It's just another worker placement that didn't do much for me. So I don't mind it. It's not bad, but it didn't do anything special for me.
But Adam, it's got dice. You love dice placement.
Oh, amazing.
Speaking of dice, my number 39 is Castles of Burgundy, designed by Stefan Feld and published by Ravensburger, with a more recent, ultra gaudy version by Awaken Realms, right, Tim?
That's right.
So this one I know is not going to be on Adam's list. I'm pretty confident, but I feel like it probably is going to be on Tim's list. So I don't know. We'll see if my predictions come true. Is the new one to my list. I didn't have it on the last couple of years because I hadn't really played it. Or I think I maybe have played it once before that, but I didn't really understand the game. Can't really say that I still entirely understand the game, but I really like it. I think it's a lot of fun. That point salad is just not something I object to. Point salad can be a lot of fun to me. The clever little puzzle of making sure you're filling in the blocks in the right order and you're getting the right point scoring tiles, that you're at the end of the game, you're going to have the right end game scoring. I find all of that a lot of fun. And I actually really like dice worker placement, which is sort of like what this is. And so I don't have a problem with that. I think that's a lot of fun. All of that's a good time to me. I am very bad at it. I think I mentioned this one as one of the games that I'm very bad at, but I still really enjoy playing it, even though I pretty much lose at it every time I play.
This game is tough for me. Thematically, it doesn't work. I've said some things about this one in the past. It doesn't do it for me. Bottom line, it doesn't really do it for me. The dice placement and sort of the arbitrary rolls. I got snake eyes, and now I can't do anything except, I don't know, get some other guys that might help me later on in the game. It's just so.
Isn't that how Snake Eyes works in most dice games, Adam? You don't want Snake Eyes. That's just how it works.
It doesn't have to be Snake Eyes, though. It can be anything.
It could be anything. It could be a 3 and a 2, and for some reason that doesn't work this time. Or it could be a 6 and a 5. It could be a 12.
Adam doesn't want Snake Eyes the worst thing ever for Storm Shadow.
Oh my gosh!
It's sort of like Adam's real job. If you roll a 3 and a 2, he doesn't go to work that day. It's like.
I wish. No, this game is. I would play it very unhappily.
I like Castle Burgundy. It's a great game.
My number 39 game is Star Wars, the deck building game. This is another one. It doesn't do much different than your Star Realms or your, what's the one I already said on the last episode? Shards of Infinity. Oops, spoiler.
Oh, spoiler.
Games.
Spoiler they didn't pay for that. Don't give it to them.
Don't tell them. So a deck builder, right? What are you doing here? You have some planets that your faction, the rebels or the empire, can jump to once your weak starter planet gets blown up. So you get to pick which planet you're going to go to. Oh, I want the planet that's going to let me really cut my deck while it's in existence, or the one that's going to help me with the capital ships or something like that. So you get to make these choices as you're getting your butt kicked as the game goes on. So I like that. You have the combat's pretty neat, little pink cubes, yellow cubes for money, and you have to track it because the market is a little more complex than like a Star Realms or Shards of Infinity. Same with damage. You kind of want to track it with these cubes. You're going to accumulate a lot. Then you have to fire. One ship can only fire at one target, so you can't split damage all the way. So it's a little more thematic than your Star Realms or Shards of Infinity, I think. So that's the one thing that stands out about this. It adds a little more downtime or thinky time, so it doesn't have that quickness of like a Star Realms, but I think the payoff is there because you're like, oh, I'm going to take my little TIE fighter and shoot over this guy. I'm going to use my bounty hunter. He's going to grab another bounty hunter, and they're going to take the Millennium Falcon because I have that. So that little combo works well, and it makes sense So a bunch of damage, and then you go destroy, one of those like Imperial Walkers or like a Star Destroyer. So you can do that kind of stuff in this game, which is super cool. So Star Wars, the deck building game, is my number 39.
Really fun game. Did you guys see there's an expansion for this now? And I have to admit, I was just a little bit disappointed in the way they're releasing it. So it's a standalone expansion, and it basically it's the prequel story. So it's like the Jedi versus I forget what the robot army was, anyway. So it's two factions again, same way. And then they have some generic cards, kind of like in the first game, the gray cards that anyone can buy. And you can't just mix them together. The way that it works is that you can take any two factions, so like one from one set and one from the other, and mix them. And then you have the generic cards. I think there's 30 cards in one of the boxes, and then 30 in the other, and you can swap out which one is in there. But which is fine. I think it could still add some fun. But what's missing is that like you can't. There's too many kind of generic cards in the base box, where a lot of the cards you see aren't that fun or that interesting to see. And I was kind of hoping to see where you could start to add in more characters. Like, where's R2-D2 and C-3PO? Where's some of the like key characters or some of the really cool vehicles? Or where's the speeder bike? The scout trooper? Where are those guys? They're never going to be in there in this mode. So unless they decide to expand it in a different way. On the other hand, I suspect they did that because balancing it, because you have to have the exact same number of light side and dark side cards in the deck. Balancing it would probably be pretty tricky without getting really heavily into the deck building, kind of the deck construction part of the game. So I don't know. Maybe it's the right choice, but I was a little disappointed. I don't think I'd pick that expansion up.
Tim, you're such a Star Wars nerd. Adam, great call out. This one would have been way up my list, except it fell under that no light games rule. So otherwise, I would have been right there with you.
All right.
All right. Well, my number 39 is Voidfall. This is by what? Who made this game? Whatever. Mindclash. Thank you. This is by Mindclash Games. A big, heavy, huge production Kickstarter game, and somehow I've gotten it played 6 times in the last year since I received it on Kickstarter. So I feel like I pretty well got my money's worth, about 25 hours of gameplay out of this already, and I can't wait to play it some more. I have a great time every time I play it. It struggles. It probably would be higher on the list if it didn't take 45 minutes to get set up and 45 minutes to teach and 20 minutes to put away. It's a lot, and it took days to learn and days to assemble the game and everything. So there's a high entry point here, but boy, do I have fun when I'm playing this game. I think there's a lot of great decisions to make, and it feels relatively streamlined once you get in and are playing the game. It's just that the entry is tough. So all that to be said, it's a wonderful game that I still love. It made it on my list this year, and Voidfall. I really liked it. I'm glad you guys seem to have a pretty good time playing it with us at Big Bear, and that was cool to see. I was a little worried, but I love it still.
I'm dying to see if this shows up on any other lists.
Me too, Chris.
All right. My number 38 is Nidavellir by Serge Leggett and published by Gree Games. This is one that just kind of came in over that my little rule there that you guys keep giving me a hard time about, because it's a pretty light game. But I think this one probably would take, if you're sitting down and playing it live, 45 minutes or so. It might, 2 games of this might be a full game night, as opposed to you have to play multiple games of Star Realms. So anyway, I'm going to stop justifying my choices now and actually explain something about the game. This one is so much fun. It's an auction game where every round you're auctioning off or you're bidding on sets of 3 dwarves who are being recruited to go off and fight a dragon. And for each of these dwarves, there's each of these 3 pubs that you're going to, taverns. There's different kinds of dwarves depending upon how the cards play out. And each different category, whether it's an adventurer or a miner or whatever, scores differently. And so you're trying to get the right combinations and also fill in rows so that you can get big bonus heroes. And it's a light game, but it's a lot of fun. Honestly, this one, I love the artwork so much. I mean, the character of these dwarves on the cards is just so delightful to look at. I wish there was more of it. But I also love that this game is on BGA, so it's one that I can play pretty regularly. And so this is one that was not on my list last year. I had tried it and enjoyed it, but it's only since I started playing it more regularly, particularly on BGA, that I've really gotten an affinity for this game. And now I pretty much play it on a nearly constant rotation because, like Azul, it's one of those games that you can just play it in, multiple games at a time, and you just looking at the board and you can see kind of how, which game you're on. It's not like, oh, what was my strategy on this one? So it's a terrific game, and I'd love to play it in real life sometime.
This is one I was going to say. I love this game, and the last couple times we've played, I've had a lot more fun with it, picking up some things. This is one I think would benefit in person, like we were saying for what was it, Downforce on that last episode. What a great episode that was. It's a Patreon episode. I think we talked about Downforce. Everyone should check it out. It's amazing. But we had this little discussion about why that game is so much more fun in person. I think this one has that effect too. A lot of games have, but this one is especially. You can glance over at other people's boards real quick, see what they're collecting, see which special power guy they have. You can look right away at their tokens and what they're saving for and which two you're going to save, so you can buy the better one from the token shop. So a lot more that you can see quickly. The BGA implementation is pretty good, but I think in person this one would have that extra level of zip too. And I'm going to ask you to say it because you're like 80% Icelandic now, right? Can you say it?
Somebody's going to correct me on this, I'm sure, and it's going to be so embarrassing. But when I was in Iceland, so actually what I'll use is the expansion for this game is called, to an American just looking at it, you would think it's Thingvellir, which is the name of a national park. In Iceland, the thing was the National Assembly. And the way they would pronounce that park in Iceland was Thingvellir. And so the double L has a TL sound. So this, I believe, would be Nidavellir. So,
I love how you say it. It sounds so smooth and crisp. And I mock that you're Icelandic, but I love how you pronounce those games. And you gave us a little explanation. It's beautiful.
I just hope that nobody corrects me and really embarrasses me there. So just if you know better, just be kind.
After our Orleans episode and how many people made fun of me for pronouncing it Orleans, I'm not even going to try to pronounce names by their regional pronunciation anymore.
For what it's worth, I did back you on that one, Tim. I think I did it as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the right way to pronounce it, but apparently not in the United States. They're not allowed
pick on
to.
Tim. It's always pick on Tim.
So Adam, I have to tell you gave me whiplash here because I swear we just played this like 2 weeks ago on BGA, and at the end of the game you said I don't like this game very much, and then I think we played one more game after that. But did I misread that or something? Did you not like that last game, or what's going on here?
So I think I did have a quick switch, like we played it kind of twice in a row.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I don't get it. And then Chris was talking about, why am I bad at this one? I shouldn't be bad at it. I can see what's going on. I know what to do. But for some reason, I'm still bad at it. And maybe I picked up a couple things, or at least I thought I did that last game. I think I still came in second or something, but I thought I was doing better and maybe having some realizations. And if I can feel like I'm improving a little bit or discovering some new things about a game, then I'm like, oh, I am actually dumb. There's a lot more in this game going on than I have given it credit for. That's going to elevate it a little bit in my brain.
Okay, fair enough. It's just like there are some games, like if somebody kind of indicates that they're not having fun, I wouldn't invite you again. But now It sounds like you wouldn't.
Even if I'm not having fun, I don't mind ever going back to a game. That's part of the fun, is playing not fun games for me, I guess.
And I think I had the same experience Adam did, which is why this is the first time this game's showing up on my list. So we all grow, right?
Up next for me is Apiary. This is by Connie Vogelman and Stonemeyer Games. We played this. I've talked about the story. We played it up in Big Bear, and you guys caught on. I was like still lagging behind. You really need to go and get these carved tiles. These are these big point-scoring tiles at the end of the game. I have that desire to go back and do this one the correct way, snatch a couple of those carved tiles and get some big points and try to win a game of Apiary. So this one is up there for me because of that challenge. I know I can see that challenge. I want to be able to execute the challenge. I know what I'm kind of supposed to do, I think, so I'm going to try to do it. So that's why Apiary is up there, number 38 for me.
Yeah, this one has stood out to me more than I ever expected to, as what is, again, kind of a basic worker placement game. And it just feels just unique enough, maybe colorful enough. But I think the variety and the different strategies that are going to come up throughout the game as all these different little tiles come up makes it a fun puzzle for me every time. So that's a great pick.
Yeah, excellent.
All right, my next one is Marrakesh at number 38. Marrakesh is a Stefan Feld game, and I really like it. It's fun. It surprised me how quickly you guys got in and started just, like on my first teach. That was my first teach of the game. I'd been taught it the first couple times I played it, and you guys seemed to pick it up quickly, and you were in and playing it quickly, and so I like that it's fairly easy to get into, but just fun puzzles. The competition for that little cube tower as your Keshis drop down there and hoping that the right ones come out and you get to get a juicy draft there at the beginning and get some big actions with it. Some good player interaction as you're racing up those temple tracks and the whatever the other track is up there. And as you're competing on the river boat, racing down the boat, the river. So anyway, Marrakesh is a fun game, a fun Euro with lots of stuff going on that, I always have fun playing.
Yeah, I think what you meant to say was it's amazing how quickly we got into that game and started to dominate. I still maintain I should have won that game if it wasn't for that one little rule that, I'll leave it at that.
Who did win that game? I don't even remember who won that one. You're going to give it, was it me?
I think it was you.
Oh, okay, perfect.
It should have been me is what I mean. Yeah, I think it was you. It should have been me.
I don't know what little rule you're talking about either. I have no memory of anything you're saying right now.
There was a rule, my friend. There was a rule.
Tim, I'm surprised this one's so low on your list. I had tons of fun playing Marrakesh. I can't wait to talk about this one on a future episode.
Ooh, wow. Stefan Feld on Adam's list is good. That's the biggest surprise of the night.
First time for everything, right? Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah, this is kind of like we talked a lot about this on the Patreon episode that we recorded, that there are so many great games on this list that even some of my favorite games are way down here in the 30s at this point. So if it's on the list, it's a wonderful game. I love it. But yeah, Marrakesh is sitting here at number 38.
All right. Well, number 37 on my list is another brand new to me game. Well, actually, I take that back. It's not really a brand new to me game. It's sort of a brand new to me game. So instead of saying more stuff about it, I'll just say the actual game, which is Fractal Beyond the Void, designed by Jan Hilaire, Romain Lesiuk, Bernardo Rip, and published by Boar Game Studios. This is one that Adam reintroduced us to after we did our review of this a couple of years ago, which seems like a million years ago, on a prototype of this game when it was still in the Kickstarter mode. And now we've actually played the real version, the final version, and boy, did I have mixed emotions about this when we played it in Big Bear. I got crushed. I completely misunderstood the scoring, and I was so bitter about that. But at the same time, I was so digging so much about this game that I want to get back to it. It's 37. If I can play it competently and maybe feel the force of this game, then I think it might be higher next time. So let's get this one back on the table again.
Chris, what a great pick. I can't wait to talk about this one in the future as well. I think Tim had a lot to say about it. Was that this episode? Episode?
Nope, last episode.
Last episode. What a great episode.
Chris, this is probably the biggest shock for me that it's on your list, because I know you thought that there was potential here, but you seem to be pretty miserable playing this game. So, I mean, that's fine. Sometimes you know that a game was just a bad gameplay, but a little surprised that you've been thinking about it in a positive light after that last play.
Yeah, I mean, I really think it had to do with just some really poor play. It was the phenomena where you have a game where you're being crushed. You know there's no way to come back, and you know you're gonna be sitting there for a couple more hours playing a game that you have no chance of winning.
Yeah.
But that was my fault, not the game's.
In all fairness, I think Adam kind of had that same feeling about Apiary. In that same con that we played, I remember the last half of it being like, "Oh, I can't win this," but still having fun playing it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay, up next for me is Rising Sun. This is a game by one of our favorite designers, Eric Lang. And I don't know if it's one of our favorite publishers. I seem to like them okay. I know they have some sketchy, some people say sketchy Kickstarter practices. Simon or Come On Games. They do a lot of the FOMO marketing. So whatever. I'll leave the politics for later. This is Rising Sun, an incredible area control game. Best at 4 players, I think, because then everybody can do these loose alliances throughout the course of a round. You get to pick an action, and then you and your partner get a little bit of benefit from picking that action. And then the action selection, I think, is one of the coolest things too. You have the stack of chunky actions you can do, and you get to look at the top 3, I believe, and you pick one of those and you put the other two back on top, so you know what might be coming up next. I think that's really cool. And then you have this sort of area control. You have the big old area control on this beautiful map of Japan, I believe. And then you also have this little spiritual area control part where it's just these sort of bonus action locations at the top of the board. Some great mechanisms here. The combat system is really neat too, with these auctions and coins, and it's a phased combat system. So that none of that probably makes any sense, but it all ties together nicely. I love this one. This is one Chris sometimes has to sit there and pain his way through a game. Seen him do that at least one time. Rising Sun, my number 37.
Adam, so you mentioned that you think that the best way to play this is at 4 players. And I've played it 3 and 4, and I agree that 4 is a better player count there. But my friend, after we played our last game of it, said, no, I think the best way to play this would be at 5. And I was thinking, I think he's right, because then you actually have some risk of not getting involved in that tea party, but there's not, like it's not half the players are left out or a third of the players are left out every time. So there's one person that if they're not making the right, maybe it's the leader that's going to get left out, or maybe it's the person who is being a jerk to everybody at the table that's going to get left out of the tea party. And so that I think would make it pretty interesting. I haven't played it at 5, but I'd like to try it there for sure. But yeah, cool pick here.
I think it's an incredible idea, Tim. That sounds pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I liked this game. I wish I didn't hate this game. It's funny. It's like great art, like I don't particularly like the Mona Lisa. I mean, it's not like I'd want to hang it in my house, but I can look at it and say, yep, that's a great work of art, as is Rising Sun. It's got some amazing things going on that I just don't find fun. What can I say?
All right. Well, number 37 for me is a game that has been traditionally much higher on my list as well. I think it's made my top 20 the last 2 years, but this is Scythe, a game that I had just recently played twice in person with friends and had great plays with both times. So why is it sunk? Again, I can only explain that there are so many other great games I've played a lot this year and fallen more and more in love with. But I still love Scythe. I think the one negative that I found the last couple teaches of it is that there are a decent amount of edge rules. Even though the game plays pretty quickly and it's streamlined enough, there does seem to be people, especially new players, that are kind of surprised by how something works or missing out on a detail. And I think if I hadn't just the last 3 plays of it, I taught a new player every time and felt like I was doing a lot of rules management with it. And I think if I could just play with experienced players a couple times, it might rise back for me again. I love it though. I've got a local friend that is wants to play the Rise of Fenders campaign with me again, so I'm excited to get back into that. Scythe is, if you don't know about it, if you don't know about it, where have you been? What rock have you been hiding under? But it's a really interesting mix of Euro and combat. It works really well for me. I think that mix doesn't work well for a lot of people that had expectations one way or the other. But for me, I still love Scythe. I think it has still one of the best productions of a game ever made. And that's saying a lot considering it was published 7 or 8 years ago at this point and is still holding ground in that area.
Great classic, Tim.
Yeah, Scythe, interesting that it's fallen that much. I guess it really hasn't fallen, and maybe it's just another testament to all the great games out there. I've had a lot of great games too that seem low, but they're not low. There's a lot of great games. Yeah,
I think this was just, to be honest, a wonderful year of gaming for me, maybe for you guys too. We've been playing tons of games the last few years through the podcast, so we just get introduced to new games all the time. I've done several in-person cons. We're playing tons of new games together. So I think part of this is just that, and I was excited to see this year that our list, my list at least, has shifted a ton. And mostly it's just due to so many more games coming into my, even if they weren't new to me, they were games that I got to play more and more and either really fall in love with, or maybe that I played more and more and they started to, like Adam was talking about on the last episode, kind of, there wasn't as much to get excited about anymore. So anyway, that's probably what happened with Scythe, but still love it.
Nice. All right, number 36. I love how when you go on BGG that has like the little names in other languages, and so I'm just going to use this my really crappy French to say this one and see if you guys can figure out what I'm talking about. It's Le Charlatan de Belcastel. Any idea what that actually is?
Nope, I can't
Tim looks
translate it. I can't translate it. Yeah, well, you said something about a Castel, so I'm thinking El Grande, but I'm positive El Grande is not on your list. So.
Nope. It's the Quacks of Quedlinburg, designed by Wolfgang Warsch and published by Schmidt-Spiel. This is another new one for me. We played at our last Portland Con, and I had such a good time with it. It's a bag building game, and I have learned over the years that bag building is one of my absolute favorite things in board games. A bag builder where you're trying to like pull out the right ingredients to put in your pot and hope you don't pull out the cherry bombs that are going to blow you up and make everything explode. And I just had a blast with this game. This is one that I gives me such warm feelings. I'm actually kind of surprised it's not higher up on my list. Maybe it should be, but I would love to get this one played again. Maybe this is one we can bust out at BGG Con. It's a pretty quick little play, so I would love to do this one again.
That's a fun pick, Chris. Oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. What did you just say? The Quacks of Quedlinburg. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
No,
a delightful but unmemorable game.
I must be getting old, man. So we played this one in Portland, like you said. You told this exact story, and it was so much better in person. I had played it before on Board Game Arena or somewhere, and whatever. Like, you don't get to see all the ridiculous stuff that people are doing and pulling out of their bag, and the reactions are a good part of this one. And it's goofy. Like, oh, why did I have to push that one extra one? And the consequence that everybody's feeling as soon as they bust on their thing. It was amazing watching you guys. And then there's strategy to this one too, right? You had this amazing return on investment strategy that you were going for. And then Steve had this one where he could extend the life of his picks going around his board. So you guys, all your different, I was just being a clown show back there, blowing my bag up every like 3 draws or something. So much fun with this one, just off the back of my top 50, but really love this game. Quacks of Quedlinburg.
Just played this a couple weeks ago. I get it played a lot. And by the way, I think the original title of this is the Quacks von Quedlinburg, because it's a German game. And Wolfgang Warsch, by the way, who has an alliterative name, is one of the most interesting kind of mid-family weight game designers. Everything he's ever made, I absolutely loved. And there are a variety of unique styles and things like that. His game Taverns of Tiefenthal is one I have not played, but I would really like to try. It sounds really fun, kind of a little bit of a deck building and engine building mechanism with it. But yeah, Quacks is a super fun game. I think if they were just a little bit weightier, not that I don't have any light games on my list, but they tend to not get me as excited. So when I had Quacks going, it is an 8 on my ranking, by the way. And so when I would go up against other games, I would be like, oh yeah, I love that game, but I played it a lot and I want to play this thing that's just a little bit meatier. So I found myself comparing it against a lot of stuff, but this is a great pick, Chris, and I'm glad you really liked it.
Up next for me, and this was a shocker. It's a Wonderful World. This kind of came out of nowhere for me.
Yeah,
but
wow.
You know what? This game is fantastic. It's on Board Game Arena. I've never played this one in person. It's a little engine builder designed by Frederic Girard and published by Le Bois de Jeu. But I've only, like I said, ever played it on Board Game Arena. It does what it does exceptionally well, and that is it's just basically cubes and colors. Again, you buy something for this cost and it's going to produce this cost, but it has some trick about when the production occurs and the sort of engine you can build, and you can kind of figure out what everybody's going for, and you can sort of hoard a specific color and specialize in this thing, and then there's different scorings at the bottom of each card. So you've seen these all before, right? Where this card costs this much and it gives you this thing and this much scoring. But for some reason, this game does it in such a fun way, and it's so smooth how it goes about it. I can't put it into words. I don't know the game well enough, but I know I want to play it. There's something about it that makes me say, I want to play this game because it's smooth and crisp. That's It's a Wonderful World, a relatively light engine builder where you're just trying to get points over the course of 4 or 5 rounds. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, this is a really, really streamlined and almost kind of a classic style of game. It's so straightforward. Adam, I think you like, there's a 2-player version of this called It's a Wonderful Kingdom. They put a fantasy theme on it. It has almost the same mechanisms, but it uses, in order to draft the cards, it uses I cut, you choose type of mechanism to it, where you're playing a card down in a pile and it's either face up or face down. There's some fun little clever things going on, but you get the same at the end, you're still kind of drafting cards and building your engine with it, but you get this really interesting tension about how you pick the cards and how you're trying to bluff the other person, whether it's a good card or a bad card you put down, so you can hopefully get a better pile. I think you'd like it based on just the style of games you like and the interaction you like, and that you play a lot of 2-player games. So if you were interested in picking up a version of this that like you and Sarah could play, you should check that one out. But it's a wonderful world. Yeah, it's a cool game. Great artwork on it too.
Yeah.
I did not see this one coming. I mean, this is a game that we've maybe talked about once or twice, but so I'm interested to hear that was on your list, Adam. Good choice.
Nice.
Thanks for surprising us, Adam.
Yeah. No, you're welcome, you guys. I got all kinds of surprise over here. Intrigue.
Well, number 36, strangely enough, and again, this was not picked at all. I didn't adjust my list at all once we finished picking on Pub Meeple. I took them exactly as they came out of the list, with one exception, which I'll get to on the final episode. But the next game in my list is Viticulture Essential Edition, also designed by Jamie Stegmaier, similar to Scythe, which was my last pick. And I don't think Viticulture was on my previous year's list. It might have been high or about the same place last year, but I don't remember. Viticulture is worker placement, mostly straightforward, but somehow I always love going back to this game. I think it's best when you play with all the expansions, with like the Tuscany expansion, or with Viticulture World if you want to play a really cool cooperative Euro style game. But I've been playing even on Board Game Arena with a lot of people, without any expansions, just the base game, and I still have fun with it. It's just fun putting together the right combos and beating people to the right spaces and getting those little bonuses when you go to the space first. It makes me happy to play, but for some reason. I don't know why, because it doesn't seem like it's doing that much interesting, but something about it gives me some fun. I think it is, and there are some Euros, and there are probably others that are going to be a little bit higher on my list. But when a Euro gives you just really interesting variety and tactical decisions because of just what comes up in cards. I talked about Hallertau last week on our On the Table segment, and I love that about it. In fact, if I had not only played it once, I think Hallertau, I definitely wanted to put it on this list this week. So I think Viticulture does that. Some people get turned off by those card markets, the randomness of the draw that you're getting. I love that you get this randomness of draws and you got to work with it. You got to figure it out. So Viticulture, number 36 for me.
That's a great choice, Tim. And I know exactly what you mean by there's this kind of unquantifiable something in there that just makes this game feel so satisfying. To me, I probably chalk it up a little bit to thematics, in the combination of thematics and mechanisms, but whatever it is, it's really great.
Yeah, is it charm? This game's charming. I feel like it just has this nice appeal to it that elevates it above so many other games. So yeah, I enjoy this one a lot too.
Right, so number 35, I'm on a roll with these new games. Another game that is new to me and new to my list. It's Robot Quest Arena, designed by Rob Doherty, CJ Moynihan, and Paul Waite, and published by Wise Wizard Games. This is a deck builder that's also got a board. It's a skirmish game powered by deck building, which I've talked about a few times, so I won't get into a lot of detail other than to say this is a delightful light to medium game with a lot of fun deck building aspects to it. I like anything with deck building. The fact that you've got the skirmish game that's powered by the deck building, I think makes it even more enjoyable. And the production is absolutely top notch. I mean, the little minis that have the robots, the robot minis are pre-painted, so they look like little toys. Absolutely wonderful. And it's light enough that you could actually treat this like a family game, almost like a family game. It's maybe slightly more complex than that, but my 12-year-old plays it with me, crushes me every time. Absolutely love this game. I can see this one rising in the ranks over time, potentially, as I play this one more and more.
Chris, this is a fantastic pick. This is one, again, I've talked about a few of these. I forgot to put it in my list. If I had it in my little engine, I'm sure it would have been up here. But I also want to say we talked about skirmish games as one of my categories that I wasn't a big fan of. And ever since that episode, I was like, Robot Quest Arena. I love that game with this deck building aspect of it. You're moving your guys around this arena. If your robot gets blown out of the arena, it's okay. He just respawns right here and you go back and you take your turn. No big deal. Just some points for the other person. So it has that air of a video game. Like you die in one of these first person shooter video games and you just respawn, you get right back at it. No big deal. And it's just a point scoring mechanism. So a lot of fun with Robot Quest Arena. Robot Quest Arena. I wish I had put it on my list.
Great pick, Chris. This is one of those Kickstarters that I almost backed this year. They just had a re-release of it. And I think the only reason I didn't is because they added a whole bunch of new expansions. And if I'd gotten everything, it would have been like $350. And I'm like, this isn't a $350 game. Right. What I probably will do, though, is watch for this when it's on sale at a local game store, the seller's market, and somebody's getting rid of their used copy. I will probably pick this up because I had a great time playing. I think this will be a fun one to play with almost.
That's great.
Smart choice.
My number 35 is, I think this game was number 40 on my list last year because Chris read out a huge moan. Oh, that's how the night's going to go, Adam. This is Capital Lux 2 Generations.
Oh, it went higher? How did it get higher on your list?
Oh, my God, you guys.
Adam, what's happening? I thought all these lists were sounding so much better this year.
You guys will someday convert and see the light on this one. It's by Christian Amundsen Ostby, Elif Svensson. You may remember those names from such hits as Revive, a game I'm sure we'll hear about later. Art by Kwanchai Moria. Maybe you've heard of this guy too. Anyway, a great team of designers, a great artist on this one, and great gameplay, Chris. Yes, it's great gameplay. What you're doing is there's a capital that everybody is kind of working towards, so there's some interaction there, and then you're looking at your own city. Everybody has their own city. You're playing cards to one of 4 colors in either the capital or your city. The capital value by the end of the round has to be higher than the value that's in your city. So yeah, maybe that's where some math comes in. That's where Chris gets turned off. Any sort of light addition, and Chris is out for some reason. So if you can make it past the light addition, you're having these suits that you play to capital. They give you these special powers to manipulate the cards. So that's where the fun in this game comes in addition to light algebra. Who doesn't love that? Anyway, you do some drafting, you do some card playing, you do some summation, and you have a great game at the end when all is said and done. Capital Lux 2, my number 35 game.
Capital Lux 2, Electric Boogaloo. As much fun as Algebra 1.
That is the one game that has a 2. Oh, maybe it's the only game that has a 2. Chris has to add that subtitle on the end of every single time you've ever said that game title name. Yeah, I thought this game was all right, but I don't know how it ended up at 35 on your list. It's crazy. Because and this is way too much of a card game for Chris. It takes more time.
I don't like trick taking games. No. Anybody who's a Patreon follower will understand that joke.
Knows that joke. Yeah.
Old joke. Inside joke.
All right. Well, my number 35 is Space. This is a fairly light midweight engine builder by John D. Clare. Simple little game where you have a row of cards labeled 1 to 12. You roll 2 dice on your turn. You can either take you can take the 2 dice. Let's say you roll a 1 and a 6. You can take the 1 and the 6 and activate the 2 cards that are in those rows. Or you could add them together and activate your 7, which is generally going to be a little bit more powerful.
Wait, did you say we have to add some stuff together?
Yes, adding in this game.
Easy. Easy.
And then basically what you do is your cards are generally going to give you coins, which will allow you to buy new cards. When you buy a card, you take the card that was in that column and you slot it up underneath. You flip it over, slot up underneath, and it now has a power that activates when somebody else rolls that number. And this game is just a fun, clever little dice chucking engine builder. I never care whether I win. I just have fun building my engine. I love when I build up a big column and it triggers that 1 or 2 times and I get to cheer about it. And it goes quick. It plays like 40 minutes. Me and my wife play this all the time together. Space. Love it. It's funny. I think this is one of the 2 games we covered, this in Pan Am on episode 0, which was our very first episode in our podcast feed. And I remember at the time that I had recorded it, I was kind of mediocre on the game. Like I wanted to love it, but I didn't. And yet it's completely shifted for me now where when I look at it on my shelf and I've got 45 minutes, it's almost always the game I pick off and I want to play it. So this is a game that's just grown with me the more I've played it.
Yeah, this is one of those games that just kind of fell off my list. Didn't quite make it into the top 50, but it's a fun game. Good choice.
This is a fun one. I always say be ready to be at the table, glued to the table for 45 minutes. Yeah. You have to pay attention on everybody's die roll. You're going to be doing something or checking, and hopefully it triggers something, and then you have those moments when it doesn't. You're like, oh, I don't get to do anything. Everybody else is getting all this stuff.
There's an expansion that adds a 6 or I think it plays up to 5 in the base box, and there's an expansion that adds up to 7 players. And I played this once at 7 players. It was all new. It was like me and 6 new players, and that is crazy. You have to watch 7 people going around the table and all the dice that roll. And for me, it's like I didn't only have to do that, but I had to make sure that nobody missed their bonuses, right? Because I'm teaching it the first time, so I had to like pay attention to every dice and then what everybody else would trigger on that dice roll. That was chaotic, but I think it'd be more fun at 7 if everybody knew the game.
All right, for number 34, I'm going to break my streak. This is a game that was on my list last year, and it was about 10 spots higher, which is not that significant of a difference, but it is Smartphone Inc., designed by Ivan Lashin and published by Cosmodrome Games. Super fun game. I actually got a chance to play this with my Thursday night game group a few weeks back, and I think was generally pretty well received. It's funny though, because we've all had such a good time playing this game that I just automatically assume that everybody's going to love it. So I don't know if that's not true or what, but it's such an enjoyable game in that it seems like it should be so incredibly boring. It's the theme is so inherently boring, and yet the game is so elegant and so nicely done. I think I was a little bit hotter on it last year when it was on my list at number 24, 25. Just because it was fresher in my mind and I hadn't played it quite so many times. But such a great game. I'll happily play this anytime. And it's such a intuitive rule set as well, which I think is one of the things that for a game that's not that light, it's incredibly intuitive, which is one of the things that I also like about Viticulture that you just had on your list recently, Tim. So this one is one that I think will be on my list probably for years to come. Not sure where it's going to be, but I bet it's still going to be on there.
Yeah, that's a great pick, Chris. I'm going to rave about this one in a future episode, but I'll just say it's so streamlined. The expansion's nice, too. If you want a little smaller map for 2 players, that's fantastic, too. Sarah and I play this one at 2 players on occasions. One of our favorites to go back to for a lot of the reasons that you just said.
Still shocks me that making and distributing cell phones can be fun.
Who knew?
Up next for me, this was a shocking pick as well. This is SpaceCorp 2025 to 2300 AD. This is a game that I think was on an episode we talked about games that we're going to sell from our collection or games that we're going to get rid of from our collection. Well, somehow I never got rid of it. Or maybe nobody just wanted to buy it, so it's still here. But the more I think about it, the more I want to go back to it. So it's the solo mode is fantastic on this. There's a deck of cards and you just flop them over. And so it's easy to manage the solo guy, and that's how I'd probably play it. But also it's easy if you're a human being. You can play as a human too against other players. So it's easy to teach, but the decisions that come out of it are pretty amazing. You've got a little more. So let me go back to the stats on this, or the names and publishers: Chad Jensen, Kurt Miller, Douglas Schrock, and Mark Simonich. And this is another GMT Games game. So a rare GMT sighting on Board Game Hot Takes podcast. But yeah, I did the P500 system with this. That's their pre-order or sort of their Kickstarter kind of system over at GMT Games. I watched the production on it. What you're doing as you're exploring space. So you first start out, you have 3 different boards in this one. You first start out in the local solar system. So you're going out and you're going to some Lagrange points, or you're going to the moon, or maybe I think out to Mars. And then once you get past Mars, then you flip the board over and you have a whole further out set of the solar system. So you have the asteroid belt. I think there's a couple of asteroids close up. Then you have Jupiter, maybe some of its big moons, and Saturn, some of its big moons. And then I think Pluto even makes an appearance. And then once you get beyond Pluto, you go to the 3rd board, which is some nearby star systems. And you're going to go out and you're going to sort of colonize those or exploit those. And what you're a corporation. You're trying to get the most, I think, profit or something like that. And, that's victory points in this game. And you have this little tech tree that goes on. It's all done in this GMT, not traditional Euro production. So it's a little rough looking, a little bit different looking. But the mechanisms are there. It's a smooth gameplay. The more, this is the absence makes the heart grow fonder situation. I want to go back to this one because it's been so long since I played it, But I had a good streak in there playing it solo for like, 1 or 2 weeks when I first got this one back in the day. And now it's calling me. I want to go back to it. SpaceCorp 2025, 2300 AD. The further I get away, the more I realize that its mechanisms are actually quite fantastic and unique and streamlined, which I appreciate all of those.
Absinthe makes the heart grow fonder as well.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Despite of it being a GMT game, I'd actually like to play this game, Adam. And since we happen to have a couple months where we hopefully can get some decent gameplays in, if we want to take a break from Fractal or Voidfall or some of the other things we have on our slate, I wouldn't mind trying this one out with you. So yeah, let's give it a shot since it's back on your list.
Great, I'll get it set up, man. I think you'll like it a lot. It's kind of has some race element to it too.
You guys play it, and if you both give it a thumbs up, then I'll be willing to play it.
All right. Number 34 for me is a fairly new one I talked about recently, but I played it a ton since then, and that's Sky Team. Sky Team is a 2-player cooperative game. What? Why is there a cooperative game on my list? Well, you don't have to talk to the other person while you're making your choices in this, and I love that about it. It is a very fun, simple dice placement game. You both roll, one person plays the pilot, person plays the co-pilot, and you both have some little things you have to get done on your board. At the same time, you have to work together to make sure that the engine speed stays within a certain threshold and that your roll on your plane isn't too much, so that you don't flip over and crash and lose altitude. And so basically every time both players roll 4 dice, they can, before rolling the dice, they can generally talk some strategy. Hey, we got to remember to watch out for those airplanes in our flight path and deal with them. But once you roll the dice, you can't discuss the strategy, what you're going to do with them. So the fun part is, and they're behind a screen. So the fun part is like, I know that we've got to stay straight this round or we're going to crash. So I'm going to place a 3 out in the roll section on my side of the plane. If my pilot doesn't have a 3 also, then we're going to crash. But hopefully they do. Hopefully I put something centric enough. But to mitigate that, well, they didn't place a 3 there, so I'm going to put a 1 down and get a coffee mug so that potentially they can use that coffee to adjust their dice. Anyway, it's just fun. You do have to make choices that could impact the other players. You have to try to think about what they might do based on what the average dice they might have rolled or what some of the little goals are you have to do each round. But it's fun and it's tense. The first couple plays of it, we won pretty handily, and I was like, oh, is it too easy? But we've started to up the difficulty. This is on Board Game Arena, so I've gotten to play a whole bunch of times. I just picked up a copy as well because I loved it so much. But I've started to play some harder scenarios in it, and it is getting very tense. And I have crashed the plane a couple of times, and it gets to be very interesting. So I'm really loving going back to this as a cooperative game. It's shocking that it's on my list, but I'm really liking it.
All right. So my number 33.
Nothing to say about Sky Team?
I will say, say something. Yeah.
Chris just skipped right over. He's like,
I don't know.
I don't care about that. I would love. This is one I've been kind of avoiding because how good can it be as co-op and pilots, and that's what I do in real life. I don't want to mess with this one, but I think I'm gonna have to break down and finally play this one. So maybe we'll get a game going on Board Game Arena. It'd be fun to try.
It was probably not a small part of why I bought it. I mentioned on the last episode that I just moved close to a Barnes & Noble. I can walk two blocks to it. So the first day I got here, took a little walk, walked into Barnes & Noble, and there's a great board game selection. And they had 2 copies of Sky Team there. And I was like, I'm going to buy this. But we just got out here, haven't had any time, got a ton of stuff to do, don't have any time to play games. So I'll wait a couple weeks. So I stopped back over in Barnes & Noble like 3 days later. There's only 1 copy left. I was like, crap, I'm good. So I picked it up. I didn't want to not have the opportunity to pick it up. I think Danielle's going to like this one. She hasn't played it with me yet, so I'm excited to bust it out with her. But Adam, since you're in town, I'm sure this will be a nice 25-minute game that we can bust out sometime. We just got a little time to kill.
Let's do it.
You guys want to say some more about that, or should I go?
If you don't want to say anything about the game that I talked about, Chris, it's totally cool.
Yeah, no, it's I don't know. It's cooperative little dice game. I don't know. I shouldn't say that. It might be delightful. You didn't have particularly high hopes until you tried it, and then you really liked it. Maybe I would feel the same way. So I'll keep an open mind.
That's a first.
So, dude, I'm the most open-minded person. Like I have. Anyway, number 33 on my list is a game that's dropped fairly significantly. since last year, and that is Through the Ages, a new story of civilization, designed by Vlada Chvátil and published by Czech Games Edition. It was actually in the teens in my last year's list, and it's fallen pretty considerably. And this is something where, you know, Adam and I talked about a little bit on the Patreon episode, the 40 to 50 episode. And for me, the reason is kind of, you know, just overplayed a little bit. It's also a game where I don't feel too inclined to play it unless I'm playing it on the app. Like, I played it on BGA before, and it's not great. It's not a game that I would want to play necessarily live. You know, it seems like it would be extremely fiddly, lots of cards, things piling up. It's a game that really benefits from having an outstanding app to play it on, which doesn't, you know, again, doesn't take anything away from the game. I mean, it's a great game to play on the app, but I feel like I have to sort of temper my rating of the game based on the fact that it seems like it would actually be less enjoyable to play as an actual physical board game. So it's definitely a great one. It's got cool mechanisms, and so it definitely belongs on the list. But I think it is probably more appropriately placed here in the 30s where it is right now.
Yeah, we were really high on this one last year, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
We both had it way up on our list, and then I keep talking about the Patreon episode, but it's really good. So a lot of great discussion in there about a lot of great topics. So yeah, we talked about this one a little bit and how I'm kind of been feeling satiated with it as well. It's not a bad game or anything, but I'm satisfied, and that exploration component is sort of fading away a little bit.
Yep.
A game you don't like to play on the table, you only will play it if it's in an app. I didn't realize we were a video game review show now as well.
Well, you know, why limit our market, Tim? That's what I would say. Up next for me is Xenon Profiteer. Chris already said some amazing things about this one. It's a little deck builder with a quirky theme. You're trying to isolate Xenon from the atmosphere, just like in real life. I feel like I could run a Xenon plant. I think the original intention was so you could learn how to run a Xenon plant from this game. Maybe that's right. Maybe that's wrong. I can't remember. There is a picture of this game by Andrew Brooks on Board Game Geek. At least that's who posted it. And it has a component arrangement, and it is beautiful. Take a look at this if you have it up. There's just all the cards arranged. You can see how beautiful these cards are. They're bright and colorful. The components pop. There's a nice little sort of rainbow display at the top. It is a stunning photo, a beautiful game, and a fun game. Great mechanics, quirky theme. Xenon Profiteer, my number 33.
This fun game, you know, for some reason, so we do these cons together where the 3 or 4 of us get together in a house for 4 or 5 days and just game the whole weekend. And there's always one night where I have just a little bit too much to drink, and then I feel pretty awful the next day. Every one of these trips, it's happened one time.
Really? One time, Tim?
And in Big Bear, it was the morning we played Xenon Profiteer. Somehow I still had fun despite how I felt that morning. So that must have been a pretty decent game, but yeah, not bad. All right. Well, number 33 on my list is Revive, the much better game by the designers of Capital Lux 2. No, this is a great game. And, you know, it's really interesting. So this is a great game that I love. I love exploring. There's so many cool mechanisms in here. And the only problem with it, the only reason why it's lower on my list is because there's so much downtime between turns. There's a lot you get to do on your turn, and so everybody else has to wait for you to do those things. But it's okay. I still love it, right? It's 33 on my list. It's fantastic. I'm just going to tell you that I figured out how to fix this the other day in my head. Of course, have never played it. I try not to ever tell designers how they should fix games, but I think some mix of the way that Lost Ruins of Arnak did it, where you have some actions that are lightning bolt actions that are instants, and then some actions that are the main action, so you only get one per turn. And I think this game would have been fixed by making a lot of the card actions, just having a lightning bolt thing. You could do that, then do another one. And then some of the lightning bolt actions in this game, where you can kind of do as many as you want for lightning bolts, make some of those main actions. So you can build out your engine, and sometimes you get to activate a couple little things, but they're always the littlest things. And then I'm going into all this stuff because I honestly think that if that was in there, it would have been a perfect game. But anyway, Revive is still fantastic. you're clearing out snow, exploring this world, building buildings, getting little bonuses all over the place, building up your engine, doing this fun little deck building mechanism. This is a great game, great thematic, fun Euro with lots of cool stuff going on.
Is Chris frozen? Or no, he's there. He's just not talking.
Chris has nothing to say about any of my games tonight.
No. This one I'm actually looking at my list to see where it fell, because it didn't quite make it on my list, but I couldn't remember how far down it fell. So yes, I do have things to say about it. It's a great choice. It's a lot of fun. It's a good game, and maybe next time we play it, we can try your theory there.
No, I'm not going to house rule the game.
Tim loves house ruling.
Oh, so you're going to talk about house rules that you don't actually want to implement.
That's right.
Oh, that makes more sense.
I'm talking about second edition. It was going to be fantastic.
Got it.
All right, well, great pick. Yeah, I agree, Tim, that the designers of Capital X 2 have struck gold a few times, so we'll be hearing more about this one as well.
All right, well, let's go from gold to wood. Number 32 on my list was Woodcraft, designed by Ross Arnold and Vladimir Suchi and published by Delicious Games. This is another new one for me. This is one that we tried for the first time, or Adam and I tried for the first time in Portland at the last Portland Con. And I was surprised at how much fun that I had with this game. And it was funny because the whole time we were playing it, I was thinking about a comment Tim made when we did it wasn't a review, I think it was an on the table segment, where you commented that this looks like it's going to be this like light family weight game with all like sort of the cartoony elf artwork. And it certainly does look like that. But then you get into it, and this is a freaking crunchy, thinky, complex game in a great way. I really enjoyed it. I had a really great time. I love the color palette of it, the woodland characters, and the clever little woodworking type tie-ins thematically. So you can take your 3 die, if it's a brown 3, and turn it into a brown 1 and a brown 2. So you can cut your wood and you can stick them together with glue to make something. And there were so many things about this that I found really enjoyable. It probably would be higher up on my list if it was just slightly less complex and crunchy, because I do feel like there were some things that were thrown in there. Like there was something about putting tools in the attic or whatever that I never actually did. I think nobody except Tim actually did that. And it felt like, oh, maybe I should have been, but do we really need to have that? So there was probably a couple things that could have gotten stripped out of the game that I think would have improved it even more. But, you know, like you just said, Tim, who am I to tell a designer what they had to do with their game? But I think I did still very much enjoy Woodcraft and looking forward to playing this one again.
This is a funny pick because Tim picked it before too, and I don't know what to think about this one. I thought it was pretty neat, some cool things going on with the dice. I like that the composite wood, right, would be stronger than the regular wood. I thought that was like a nice thematic incorporation. But yeah, you have the tools in the attic was weird. And then isn't this the game where there's some like Keebler elves and some wood nymphs and stuff too flying around out of nowhere?
Yeah, they're just all elves. Everybody in there is a Keebler, right?
Yeah. So those guys come in out of nowhere, which I was like, okay, well, I guess we got some elves in here for some reason. So I just remember thinking that was like weird. But nothing wrong with the game. I kind of want to go back and play this one. I don't remember too much about it. I mean, the action selection was kind of goofy. Who is it? This guy always wants to have some kind of something where you have to go around on a circle-y thing to do your actions.
Yeah, I got to play his game Shipyard recently, which was there's a new edition of it, but the first version where he kind of used that same similar action mechanism, and then he used it in Praga Kaput Regni. And I think Woodcraft is by far the best version of it, so it's a good evolution. I love the action selection. In fact, I think it's really fascinating. My favorite part about this, though, is that it is essentially order fulfillment, right? You pick up these order cards and you just got to turn in the resources that it wants, which is generally, it's used a lot of games, but it's generally kind of boring. But here it's so fun because you're not just picking up resources and spending them, you're making the resources. You have to literally manipulate the resources to get the size and the type that you need. And I think it's such a cool way to do resource management. So yeah, I love this game. Great pick, Chris.
I like that you can grow your own wood too, and the numbers kind of go up. That's kind of a neat mechanism too. So yeah, a lot of cool things going on here in Woodcraft. Up next for me is Glory to Rome. This is designed by, I don't have it up, but Tim, do you know off the top of your head?
God, I should know
infamous.
this. Yeah,
Infamous.
I can't remember the designer's name off the
Here,
top
I
of
have
my
it.
head.
I have it just pulled up. Ed Carter III and Carl Chittick.
Carl
They
Chittick,
designed
that's the
this
name I
one.
was thinking of.
Yeah. And there's a crazy publishing story about all this that I don't know much about it. Let's talk about the actual game. I'm not talking about the black box one. That's the one that's coveted and it's some people's Grails game and worth all this kind of money. But the game is actually good too. I got to play Andy Schwartz, again, the designer of Envelopes to Cash, which I excluded from. No, that's not true. I didn't exclude it. I have it at. Where did I have? I should have excluded it. I have it at number 52 on my list. But he's my friend, and we hang out and play games. So take for that what you will. I like his game, but it didn't. I'm not gonna have it. I shouldn't include it. He's a friend. Anyway, Glory to Rome brought that over, taught it to me. So there's some multi-use cards, some fun things going on here. There's this pool of resources that kind of build up. One of the cards is grab from that pool, and then you can stash some resources under this part of your board, and then you can erect some sort of facility with this card up here. I don't remember the rules. Okay, guys, I don't remember the rules. I remember the way they work together is fantastic. This neat little mechanisms, some crazy different ways to score points or in the game. So when we were playing, I bought some card that let me in the game right away, and I had the most points out of everybody. So it was a kind of a quick finish. You can have that snap ending, and you reset it and play it again. So it was a quick playing, but lots of cool, understandable mechanisms. I've tried Innovation before, which is another Carl Chittick game, and it's too weird for me. I'm sure if I played it a few more times, it would come to me and I'd get it. But glory to Rome for having all kinds of weird multi-use cards and what they can do and what they can't do and how to use them smartly and sort of manage cards. And are they going to be resources or what are they going to be? Glory to Rome does a lot of neat things that I haven't experienced in other games. And it's not only has this legendary story, it's actually a really good game. So that's my number 32.
I agree. I get to play the black box edition just a couple months back, shortly after you talked about it on the table, and it's a super fun game. Surprisingly, I was afraid it was just like all hype because you can't get it, so everybody was talking about it. This is a great game. Does some wacky combos you can put together, so you just have to go into it ready for the fact that somebody can just like win because they put some random stuff together. But it's a fairly quick game. It has some weird quirkiness with the economy, so that it's like. Our friend was teaching it, and it's not a complicated game, but he's got to like explain all these kind of weird rules. So for what is basically a very simple card kind of tableau game, it is more complicated, and I think in a good way. I think it's good that there's some of the excess rules overhead to make it more than just a light, simple family weight card game. And it feels like it, but it's worth it. And the Black Box edition is really cool looking, fairly minimalist from a design perspective, but very clean. I had a great time playing. I hope at some point that Carl Chittick and the other designer work something out and get this published and make some money off it, because people should buy this game. They'll sell a ton of it and people will play it.
Yeah, if you mentioned the extra complexity, I think it adds definitely to the nuance in this game in a very good way.
All right. Well, my number 32 is Battle for Rokugan. This is one of the few games on my list. This is one of the few games on my list that I've only played once, but I loved it so much that I do have a copy now. It's out of print, but a friend of mine who knew I was watching for it managed to pick it up from somebody that's selling their collection for $5, picked it up and gave it to me, and I can't wait to get it played again. So as soon as I have 4 people together, this is going to be one of the first games that gets played on my table. I had a blast with this. Can't wait to play it at 4 or 5 players, because we've been talking about playing it at 3. We even talked about it at when we were all in Big Bear together, and we just feel like 3 maybe not ideal. You want to get a little bit more players in there. I can't wait to go back to this game. It is a small little box. It's mostly cardboard shits, but it's beautifully designed, even if the components aren't super like impressive. It looks great on the table, and yeah, what a fun experience this was. So Battle for Rokugan, I could definitely see this getting higher for me once I get a few more plays in it.
Yeah, same here. Great choice.
Yep, fun game.
Which I believe brings us to the very top of the list, the end of the episode. And for me, that gets us to number 31, which is Heat, Pedal to the Metal, designed by Asger Harding Grenrud and Daniel Skjold Peterson, and published by Days of Wonder. I won't go as far as to say that this was a wrong take for me, because I didn't dislike this game when we played it, but I do feel like I was pretty lukewarm when we first reviewed this game. I think the comment generally, and I don't think I was the only one saying it, was it felt like it took too long for what the game was worth. Since then, I've played this a number more times, and I have enjoyed it more every time that I've played it. This game is a lot of fun. Once you know the rules, it actually moves quite quickly. It's a brisk game, and it does such a nice job of making you feel like you're actually racing a car and incorporating mechanisms that really do sort of, emulate the things you'd be thinking about driving a car. So, the heat in the engine is a resource that gets used, and you can do things like, really push to the red line, or, take a corner really hard, but then you have to pay for it in heat. So a lot of fun, and just the idea of, racing these cars around is just a blast. And it's got these awesome little, they're not super fancy, but they're these little toy cars that just, who doesn't like playing with toy cars when you're playing on a board game? So a lot of fun. I'm glad that I went back and gave this one a second and third chance, because this one has grown on me a ton since I first played it. And now it's on the list, coming in at number 31.
Chris, that's a great pick. We've had a lot of battles. I'm glad we went back, and I think you invited me to a game, and then we just started this ongoing series of Heat Pedal to the Metal for, I don't know, a few months or something off and on. And it's been such a delight. I like the expansion where it gives you these special components. Do you want to pick tires for this track? Are you going to pick this extra little fuel thing for this track, or a wing or whatever to give you more stabilization around a turn? So they do some really neat things where it can adjust the corner speed by +1 or +2, or it can make your braking range from either 5 spots or 2 spots. So you can game it out a little bit when you're using this brake card and draft behind somebody, and then slot 2 or 3 spaces, 1 or 2 spaces ahead after you draft. So a lot of nuance when it comes to cornering and getting behind and drafting and hitting the straightaways at the right time and managing your deck to have that flop over at the right time when you want the cards that you need for the long straightaway up ahead. What a cool game, Heat Pedal to the Metal. It's just off my list at number 51, but so much fun playing this game, Chris.
And I feel like we're due to go into another series on this one.
For sure.
Are you guys having fun playing this at 2 players? Like, how does that work? Are you playing against, is there bots, or how does that work okay. So if you're playing this on the table, there's like a deck of cards or something that tells you how far the cars move, or do you know how to manage it?
I'm not sure. I've only played with the bots on BGA, but I assume it's something like what you just said.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. This is still it's been an okay game for me every time I played it, but I would like to try that garage expansion where you get like 1 upgrade or something like that every time. I haven't had a chance to play with that yet, and I'd like to try it on the table one time before I make a final judgment on it. At this point, there's no way in heck it would ever make my top 100 list, but maybe someday in the future.
Well, my number 31 game is a game I just got in from Kickstarter. This is Star Tycoon, the most generically named Euro game in the history of board games, according to Tim. But no, it's not generic. You are the corporation of a guy some business in space trying to use the space market, the space commodity market, to get the resources and money you need to buy some cards or to buy some planets. I guess you're buying planets, and you're buying settlements to put underneath those planets. And this is a game where it just gives you a bunch of different goals to go out and achieve for different amounts of points. Nothing too huge, so there's nothing too clear to go after that's going to get you a ton of points. So you're trying to work the puzzle together, or as you're playing the game simultaneously with the game, how can you generate the most points? And you're trying to find these combos. So maybe these 3 planets came up. Oh, that's going to work well with this card here and this card here. Shoot, how can I buy those? I need a blue and a green. Well, I have $3. Oh, I can buy 6 brown commodities for my $3. Now I can sell those and turn them into blues. All right, I got what I need. Now I can get this planet. So that market aspect, I think, is pretty neat in this game. At 2 players, just enough fluctuation to make it pretty interesting. And the designer said with more players, that market's going to vary a little more widely. You're going to be able to hit that a little harder and have some extreme changes in money to resource. And then if you have a bunch of resources, there's these cards that cost a ton of resources. You can buy those. There's a cap you have to discard down to 7 resources at the end of each round. So you can't just hoard all this money. So that makes it interesting. There's an event at the beginning of rounds 2, 3, and 4 that do some crazy things, a big fat event deck. So you're never going to see the same 3 events throughout. I don't think anytime you play it, very rarely would you see that happen. A lot of cool things going on here, a beautiful production. This one is still very new. I'm sure that new effect is part of the list. I didn't even try to deny it. It's a game that I want to, I did this list as games that I want to play the most right now, and it's new and cool to me. So Star Tycoon definitely has that freshness effect, but I do think it is a fantastic game underneath all of that. We'll hear what Tim has to say in a second, but that's my number 31, Star Tycoon.
This isn't even like on the top 10 list of most generic titles of Kickstarter sci-fi games that Adam's purchased. Age of Galaxy might be at the top of the list, but somehow he keeps backing them. No, this was actually I think, more entertaining game than I expected. It's a tableau builder, but it does have some fun. It kind of has some of that like Terraforming Mars / Ark Nova. Like there's tags on cards, and then you've got goals. Other cards give you goals to try to collect those tags. I had a really fun time putting that puzzle together in my first play of it. Turns went a little bit long, maybe on a first play. So in a 2-player game, it was fine. I didn't mind, but I think in a 3 or 4-player game, I would have been probably pretty bored if they went that long for everybody. And I think the problem with that is that there's this great little market where if one person buys something, the cost goes up. If somebody sells something, the cost goes down. But we never shifted the market very much in a 2-player game. So where it would have benefited more from more players from that aspect, I think it would have hurt from the play time. So I'm not sold on the game yet, but I would be happy to go back and play this some more. And I had fun with it. So maybe it would grow on me, and maybe if a couple people got to know it well, then that downtime wouldn't be an issue. I'm not really sure. I felt like I was playing everything slow when we played this Sunday.
Same here.
That game was
going on.
Part of
like
it.
Have a slow afternoon or something.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was. Just a Sunday afternoon is just everyone's moving slowly. But yeah, that was my only kind of issues with it. But I had a fun time with it, and I think comparatively to other similar lightweight tableau builders, I thought it was more interesting. The motivations for why you picked certain cards or whatever were more fun to me. And some of the restrictions of like how many you could put under a planet and which ones you were trying to purchase to put under that planet and things like that were more fun. So I'm not 100% sure that it is developed enough, because I'm not sure that market works as well as it wants to, but I'm not going to rule it out yet. I'd love to play it some more.
Yeah, it looks like it could be a fairly entertaining game. But before you bust too hard on the name, I just have 2 words for you: Star Wars. Sometimes a basic name is all you need.
That's right. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that Tycoon and Wars are comparable as as words in the English language for meaning, but I don't know, whatever.
Etymology battle. This is awesome. Linguistics battle.
All right. Well, thank you. That was great. Oh wait, I got one more. One last one. It's getting so late, guys.
He's like, Tim, that was the mic drop. It's like
that's it.
Nothing more to say.
Star Tycoon. That's it. That's the last thing. No, my number 31 game on this list, because I don't have Chris's silly rules about small games don't make the list. That's Star Realms. Star Realms is my favorite deck building only game, meaning a game that doesn't do anything else but just have a deck of cards and you play a deck builder with it. It remains my favorite. I love it. Chris and I play constantly on the app, but I play it in person as well. I have a copy of this at home. It's fantastic. And by the way, my one complaint I used to have with the physical version is it came in the cheapest little deck box. Well, the new version has a more kind of normal sized box that holds it together and everything. I think it plays up to 4 players, and I think it comes with 4 players out of the box or something. But in any case, Star Realms is great. They continue to add little mini expansions for it. You don't need them, but I think a few of them mixed in every time is always some nice variety, and they always just blend in really well. So yeah, I love Star Realms. I think it's a fantastic deck builder.
Yeah, so 2 things.
Apparently, Chris doesn't think it's a fantastic deck builder.
No,
it's not even on his list.
That's the thing. The two things. One is, if you're going to include it, you have to make it number 1. It has to be number 1. So you broke that rule already, so we'll skip over that one. Second, if you don't want to buy the one that has the crappy little cardboard box like it used to have, or the one you've got apparently, which is better, I've got this gigantic, it's like this epic-sized, 5-layer cardboard box where you're like, what in the world do you need a box this big for a card game for? But at least it's not that little crappy cardboard falling apart box. So,
what's that one called? The Deluxe Nova Edition, or something
Deluxe
like that?
Nova Edition. And I've got, coming from Kickstarter, I'm forgetting what the name of it is. I think it's the Rise of Empire.
Oh, that's
which
the
is
legacy version.
It's the legacy version. Yeah.
So that Deluxe Nova Edition, Chris, have you ever actually played with your cards out of that box?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my son really likes it, so we've actually had some fun with that.
You have played with it. That's cool. Did you sleeve the foil cards, or you?
No, I don't sleeve cards.
Okay. Right on. Star Realms, number 31. All right. Well, great guys. We're very excited. This was a great list this year, as Chris and I have already mentioned, and Adam, you can see it happen on his list too. Things have mixed up. They're very changed from previous years. Lots of fun games to explore the next 3 episodes as well. These episodes tend to introduce a lot of new people to our show. So if you're listening to us for the first time, welcome, stick around. Hope you enjoy the show. We normally end the show by calling out a listener that left us a review, typically on Apple Podcasts or some other platform. We have some reviews backing up here, but these episodes go long, so we're going to skip on them. So those of you that left reviews, thank you. We'll read them in upcoming episodes later on. But I think that'll wrap up the show. If you want to follow us, you can find us on Blue Sky, or you can find us on our Facebook group or Board Game Hot Takes /Patreon for some exclusive content, including our top 41 to 50 list. Until next week, take care, everybody.
Good night, all.